What's going on, my people, my people? Welcome to another episode of Do a Culture Lens. I am your host, Michael Anthony, and with me, as always, is the incomparable, the amazing, the mother of all things, the mother of dragons, matter of fact, Miss Amber Gray. What's going on, sis?
Hey, y'all. Hey, how's it going?
Good, good. How are you doing?
Good. I'm glad. I'm glad to hear everybody's doing well. The sun is out, shining. You know, the cicadas are pretty much everywhere in my yard. I don't know how y'all are dealing with it in the East Coast, but I am over it. I'm over the crunch.
I know. Yeah, so everybody, of course, welcome the third host of our show, you guys in the chat. Thank you for joining us. Yeah, I know. If you guys are getting cicadas, I don't know if there's a cicada emoji or something out there, or bugs or whatever, because them things, like, I'm not getting a lot of them, but where I'm at in Alexandria, I hear them like crazy. Like they
There's
are just super loud out here.
I was attacked by two today.
Where were you?
I was. I dropped Kay off at the daycare, and on my way out, I see something fly by me, and I'm running to get away from it. And then when I kind of get in the car, I hear something. It's on my back. So I had to get out and run like a crazy person to get. I was controlled in my freak out. But yeah, they're not the most pleasant looking creatures. Okay,
they're not.
They're fascinating.
17 years? I didn't even know. I didn't even think about that. I was like, oh yeah, we had cicadas last year, didn't we? People looking at me.
Well, we do. We do though. We have different. Yeah, I've been researching them because I'm kind of obsessed now. We have there's different type of species of cicadas that are just born all the time. They're all around all the time. But this particular one is the 17-year cicada, because we've got a 13-year one, a 17-year one, then we got an annual one that just comes out every year, like every other bug.
Okay.
So this one's special, but it is gross.
It is. It's something else. But also, for the people out there, we're also on Twitch right now, and we are on Facebook too. So, right now we are simo streaming. I think we have a couple people in the chat. Of course, if you guys are over watching us on Twitch, we're not monitoring that chat. So I know it's the Wild Wild West over there, so please keep it down. And then, of course, we have our Facebook family as well. So, maybe we might have some more people on Facebook, because I know a lot of people was reaching us through Facebook and didn't come to YouTube. So I'm wondering if people are watching us over there. So, but we'll check on you. But please still hit up the chat, still be part of the conversation. We even take thumbs ups over there. You can share, You can subscribe, you can do anything. So, please support the show and support me and Amber as we sort of go through this. But before we get into this, happy holidays to everybody. Memorial Day is coming up. You have any plans?
That's right. Well, the weather kind of sidetracked. We're hoping to do another beach weekend, but it's going to be 68 degrees. That's not enough for me. I need 80 plus to be at the beach. So I don't know now. I'm not sure.
I know it's supposed
to
rain.
What about you guys?
Nothing. It's supposed to rain all day Saturday. And then Sunday's supposed to be on and off. And then Monday's supposed to be nice, but then that's when everybody's traveling. So exactly. I know me, I hate traffic. So I ain't trying to be in the traffic. So we're just going to chill up here and maybe see some more sites, do some tour walks or whatever. Places are starting to open up a little bit. Being in DC, that's one of the benefits, is like there's so much history around here that we can take a look at. So that's what I'm pretty excited for. But as we move along, though, today we are talking about the show Them. Now, we do understand that some of you guys have certain feelings about it. I don't know if Tristan's in here, or somebody else who may not feel as much about it. But we really felt strongly that we wanted to talk about this show, because we have completely different feelings about what this show is than what other people have said. Would you agree?
I would agree.
Mm-hmm. So
I would agree. I understand the overall sentiment, and this is going to be a spoiler alert type of show. So if you're going to be upset about what we say and you haven't watched it, then maybe just keep your phone on so we get the views, but maybe don't listen. But yeah, we have a different take on it.
We do. And then, so did you want to go over sort of what the show's about a little bit?
Yeah. So I can go over it. So the show is about the Emerys. It's a beautiful Black family from North Carolina. They experience a horrific tragedy because of a racist town, essentially. And this is in 1953 or 1954. I can't quite remember. 1954. But in the early to mid 50s. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So they discovered, or they went through a tragedy situation, which you don't see until the story kind of unfolds what exactly happened. They kind of leave you some breadcrumbs as to what led up to this tragedy. So they were kind of part of the second Great Migration. So this Great Migration took place between the 1950s and about the 1970s. So they left from North Carolina to Compton, California. Well, Compton, California in 1953 was predominantly white. So most people that are from California, like myself, that's not how we know Compton. We know Compton as being a very black city. So they left
NWA, right?
thinking that this
NWA.
was NWA, exactly. Kendrick Lamar. So it's like they left thinking, let's get away from the South, let's get away from, you know, the segregation, the, you know, lynchings and all the things that were taking place still. And let's go for something a little bit, you know, that we can raise our family, that I can get a job and actually, you know, sustain our life and thinking it's the American dream. Really, that's what they thought. And they get there and it's an American nightmare. And this is what happens. It's the same racist, you know, the same racism that you see in the South. And this is what I liked about this, because I think a lot of people have this idea of the Great Migration of like people getting to Chicago and getting, you know, up north to Minnesota and going up west to, you know, Colorado and California, and they're going to have these like more opportunities. I'm not saying that it didn't happen, but it was the same racism no matter where they went. So, you know, this idea of having this kind of utopia doesn't really exist if you're Black. And the show kind of highlighted that.
Yeah, and it was and of course they highlighted how like it was about Negro migration or the Great Migration. I'm sorry, I said Negro migration. The Great
I was like Negro migration, interesting.
right. Well, I mean, but it was the Great Migration, of course, of Negroes moving from out of the racist South, like Alabama, North Carolina, different places like that, to be able to live in these cities, you know, where there was job opportunities and hopefully less racism that was going on. Hopefully. And of course, you know, and it's so funny that, you know, I'm from North Carolina and you're from California. You know, did you ever realize that connection? You know, that
yeah, when I was watching it, I said that's it. Well, yeah, I thought that was interesting because we had a North Carolina show last week, and now we're having a North Carolina show this week with the California connection as well. So I did think about that.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and of course, people in the chat, you know, please let us know how you felt about it. I see that we do have Valerie in the chat right now.
Yeah.
We do have a few people that I think are slowly jumping in, but you know, I think the people are still getting used to us starting at 6 as opposed to 6:15. So, but it's okay though.
Right.
But thank you, Valerie, for joining us today. You know, but yeah, the show, you know, we kind of wanted to break it down a little bit and discuss some things that we, you know, sort of saw that was differently from the show than what a lot of people are saying. So what we want to do is start off with, you know, sort of the filmmaking aspects. That's something that we really don't, you know, hear from a standpoint as the critiques have come out. So some of the things that we wanted to talk about was like, you know, the cinematography of the show, you know, and just how beautifully shot this show was. I mean, the lighting, you know, and just how they set up the shots as far as making sure that the characters had depth. We can see some of their perspective, some of the low angle shots, and they used a lot of symmetry, you know, where there was a lot of split screens, you know, of like this feeling of like off balance. And I really, really enjoyed that part of
I did too.
The movie, you know, of the show.
Yeah, I loved the hallway scene where he had just finished screaming because he was just so frustrated with his boss, just being demoralized, you know, essentially by that white man. So he came out, stuffed all that paper towel down his throat, and is like screaming in the men's bathroom. Then when he came out, the juxtaposition was like kind of tilted. They had the camera tilted as he was walking. So it was kind of like this, almost like you're in a fun house, like a circus fun house or something, the way he was walking down the hallway. And then he kind of projected that he was back in World War II, you know, with the gas and seeing one of his comrades, you know, being gassed essentially. And I thought that was a really interesting shot.
It was, yeah. It was the one whenever he went and he grabbed that towel and was like biting on it because of what was going on. You know, and just how they shook the camera was just like a really effective way of, you know, visual storytelling, which I thought was amazing. And then there was one thing that you said about a cinematographer, right? As far as like how they were really trying to go for a certain feel, right?
Yeah. So Little Marvin, who's a showrunner. So just for people that don't know, showrunner, basically, he wrote it. He wrote, I think, just about every episode. There might have been some collaborators, but he wrote pretty much every episode. He was a creator and the showrunner. So he essentially, showrunner means like you're over all the, you know, every single aspect of the filmmaking process. So he made sure that, you know, the actors, the producer, the directing, the lighting, the editing, the special effects, all that was kind of to his vision and to the vision of the story. So one of the things that he mentioned was that his love of horror and his love of the 1970s, specifically horror genre movies. So even though this took place in 1950s, he wanted to make sure that there was still that kind of crisp antique look to look like it was the 50s, kind of that Leave It to Beaver, almost kind of like very clean lines, like you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
The colors were kind of more muted, but then he's also had a couple colors that were kind of more highlighted, which is kind of 70s. Like 70s,
Mm-hmm.
the colors were a little bit different than the 50s.
Mm-hmm.
So he made sure to put the element of the 70s in the film because of how much he likes that genre. But the cinematographer, his name was Chico Varesi or Varese. I'm not sure how to say his name.
Mm-hmm.
He used an anamorphic lens in order to achieve that look.
Mm.
So the director, who's Craig, I always forget his first name, Nelson Craig.
Mm-hmm.
He's a Korean. He's a Korean American. So he directed more of the episodes than I think all the other people. He directed 4. And then there was a couple different directors, which was interesting because you would think that with multiple directors, it would kind of be disjointed and not have the same vision, but it was streamlined for me watching it. I didn't feel the transition of like, this is not the same show. This is whose perspective is this? Like, I didn't feel like that. I was maybe the 9th episode because that was a different time frame. They went back for that one. So that one felt different than the rest, but that was intentional. But yeah, just to go back, that cinematographer, he made the choice to have that lens because digital looks very crisp. The new cameras we have, it's really hard to pull off that antique look or that kind of vintage look. So using a different type of lens gave that, gave the show that touch, which I liked a lot.
And the anamorphic is where it's a wider lens.
That's
correct?
Right.
Because, like right now, everybody, you're seeing us on 16:9, screen.
Right.
Where like right now, the boxes that me and Amber are on would be like 4:3, which is the old TV. But then, as you can see over here, yes, I'm pointing in the right direction, where the video is being played, that's 16:9. So that means if you think about it actually being a lot wider, so that means you get a lot more of the landscape and a lot more of the depth of the scene. That's what the anamorphic lens really kind of leans to.
That's awesome. Yep, that's right.
Yeah. So, and yeah, that was a great thing that they did as far as the show, as far as making sure that they really made us feel. And once again, I'm a visual person, like we all are, and we're all artists, but like when something is visually captivating, it really sort of gets me in there, and then whenever you have like a really good, set design, that also kind of adds to it because there was so many things about this that really made you feel, like you said, it was shot sort of having this 1970s feel, but then all of the costume, the set design, just those little pieces to make you feel transported into the 1950s, I thought was amazing.
That's right. I agree. They did such a good job with the cars, with the wallpaper choices, the furniture choices, and then of course with the costuming, they did a great job with everyone's clothing. I just thought they did a really good job in really capturing what it was like to be, Black and really just alive, I guess, in the 1950s. I thought they did an excellent job with all of that.
Yeah, no, I thought everything that they did was amazing. And, of course, leading into that, the costuming. And, of course, I have this picture up here of, this white man, which I know my mama, hey, mama, I see that you in there. She said that she hasn't seen it yet. So hopefully maybe after this conversation, it may get her because she's a little bit hesitant. And Aisha, always in the house. Thank you. Yeah.
Hey, guys.
But I do think that the costuming in this, with the set design really gave to that, that period piece, because it is a period piece, and it's kind of, and we'll get to it later because it's kind of loosely based on a true story, but I really thought what they did with the costuming, and making sure that these people fit that 1950s role, I thought once again, just got you into that world.
I agree. Yep, completely. I think they did a good job from all the little girls to the nosy, horrific neighbors, the milkman, everybody looked on par for the role. Everybody looked great. I'll say that.
Right. Everybody did sort of fit that role. And then, one other thing that, was really good about it was, the score, the music, because one thing
so good
that I know that they did is they played around with like this older music, like some Ella Fitzgerald, some Louis Armstrong music, even some rock and roll, but then they were able to slow it down or even heighten it up, maybe bring a little bit more low end, which is the bass, or maybe even a little bit of high end, which is more of that screechy sound to really sort of envelop you into that sound. And like me, I'm big on audio as well. That's why when I go to movie theaters, I love sitting directly in the middle of the theater because I like the sound because people don't understand, like sound is very important. So like even when people have TVs, that's why it's always recommended to get a sound bar. So that means you can hear the words that are saying, and you can feel, the moments that are going in. So I thought what they did with the score was just amazing.
Yeah, I love when they used it. Like I loved, they used Patti LaBelle, Somewhere Over the Rainbow, to like signify when they moved in that neighborhood, like it was actually going to be something good, but it wasn't, obviously. And then even like the Isaac Hayes song, I think they used the Isaac Hayes song when they were rolling up in the car and all the white people were surrounding their car, I believe. I can't recall, but I know it was whenever they used that Isaac Hayes song was a good timing. And then they used Stephanie Mills' Home, which my girl, Wiz. So they used that at the end of one scene. I just like how they kind of juxtapose this kind of like perfect, idyllic American neighborhood, because that's how it looked. I mean, everybody's grass looked perfect. Everybody's house was perfect. Everybody's dresses were perfect. Everything was manicured, but it was a horror. The whole neighborhood was a horror show. So I like those song choices for the horror that is about to happen.
Which was just so, yeah. I mean, the way that they played the music, especially with popular music that we're used to, but then the way that you can just change up just the tone and the feeling of it to once again heighten it up, because again, this is a horror. That's one thing that we do have to let you know, that this is a horror in its truest form. Yeah. So they have to manipulate the music in order to really bring up that intensity, that thriller sort of feel, as Aisha says. And then I see Juanita's in here. I believe that's my auntie Juanita, because there's not that many Juanitas in the world that I know of. And she said that she purchased the house in Georgia. Oh yeah, this is my auntie, and had that same no Negro clause in that subdivision, and it was built in 1943. Wow, that is crazy, because I know that wasn't that long ago. I need it,
No, it wasn't.
Chat, like that because that wasn't that long ago. I believe that was like in the 2000s when she moved there.
Yeah, I saw that there was somebody who sold their house in Beverly Hills recently, and it was in there. Like they saw an old deed or something that had that clause in there. I think it was like an older clause, but still, it was still in there.
Right.
Hey Tristan. Right. Hey guys.
What's going on?
So
Tristan?
Yeah, that clause. I mean, we'll get to that. There's some foreshadowing with the name of that clause, and we'll get to that.
We will get that. We'll get to that. And then, of course, with everybody, this is what I always call the offense. So, like what we just talked about, if people are familiar with sports, the costuming, the cinematography, the score, like that's the defense, But really, what people come to see is the acting. And by far, this ensemble cast was amazing. They were hands down. And then one thing too that really I liked is that these people were chocolate.
Which you do not see ever, hardly. It's they might throw us a bone and throw a 1, maybe 2 in there, but they got to make sure that somebody is, a different hue. But I was so pleasantly surprised to see deep toned, a whole family of deep tones. I loved that.
Just deep melanin, just black of the berries.
Gorgeous people, number one. I mean, that's one thing I kept telling you. I'm like, these people are gorgeous.
They were just like a good looking black. I mean, it's like, that's like what they call black love goals,
Exactly.
Like when you saw them, it's like, man, like that's what you're looking for. But yeah, the children were beautiful. The young lady who played, which now her name slips in my mind. I can't remember. You remember the
Shahidi?
Yes.
Yeah. So there's, let's see, Shahidi Wright Joseph, the older daughter, and then Melody Hurd is the younger daughter, and then Deborah Orinde is Lucky, and then Ashley Thomas is the dad.
Right.
And then of course Allison Pill, the evil white woman across the street.
Which, I'm sorry, she pulled the Leonardo DiCaprio into Django performance. Okay.
Wow.
She must have pulled from her grandmama. Like whoever.
She's good at crazy though. She's very good at crazy.
I mean, even though I don't want to give like nominations to like terrible white characters, but once again, it's one of those things of like a good show or a good story. It's really based on the villain, on the antagonist, and she was so good in it to where you felt the threat was real. Sometimes the villain.
She was relentless. That's what makes this so good. So she was the physical relentlessness of racism. Then you've got the supernatural relentlessness of racism, all attacking this family at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Supernatural
Mm-hmm.
racism. Can you imagine? Supernatural racism on top
Mm-hmm.
of the physical, 1953 garden variety hateful white woman racism.
Right.
It was.
Right.
She was. I mean, it was a mess.
But I mean, but she played the role so. I mean, just crazy
So
white woman,
good.
just crazy white. I mean, it's it was just such great acting, and then of course the Frog Princess Anina Noki Rose.
Noni Rose. Yeah.
Okay, okay,
An-
sorry,
Anika.
girl, but she even had her a nice little part in here where again she showed even her acting chops where
She
she's
did.
such a good actress, and I didn't even realize that she was in this, but in her
I
part
didn't either.
she killed it. Like because
She did.
her character is so essential in sort of the overarching because it sort of confirmed to Lucky what she was going through
I'm
as
not
far as like
crazy.
her I'm not
Right? I'm
crazy.
not crazy. Yeah.
Right. Like there's
Hmm.
something else that's going on here that we
Right.
just need to go ahead and start looking at a little bit more. Anything else about the acting that you felt was pretty strong?
I mean, I thought Ashley Thomas, the husband, I think like the pie scene.
Oh,
Come on now. Every time that actually to me is probably like one of like top three best acted scenes in this whole anthology. It is. He killed that, and he's a rapper. That's the part
yes.
that makes it even crazy. He's a British rapper. I'm not sure if he's acted in other things. He probably has, but I know that's like what he's known for in the UK. So he killed that. He killed that part. And then when he just came back from World War II and he was on the
Hmm.
ground and he was going through kind of like the PTSD. I mean,
Yeah.
just good acting.
Right. And of course, folks, if y'all haven't seen this, this is a spoiler alert show. So please, stop now, come back and see the replay because we are
Right.
going to be talking about some of the overarching things, especially when we get to the end of the show. But we just wanted to kind of hit on the acting. And I believe this is that shot you were talking about right here, correct?
Yeah, I love this shot. Yeah.
Yeah, the above the head crane shot. They just did such a good job in this thing. And then even the other actors who play like the cop and even the husbands and things like that, like it was just such a good ensemble. It was like
really
nobody
was.
pulled anybody down. Like, and that's what good acting is, especially when you have an ensemble, is that you're feeding off of good actors. And like there wasn't a weak link in this.
There was no weak links.
In this show whatsoever. It was just overall just well
The
done.
kids, like the girl, like usually the kids sometimes you kind of are a little dicey, especially young kids.
Mm-hmm.
Some girls were acting their butts off.
They were so good.
They were so good.
They were so good. They were so good. And then, and of course, we have to talk about, the directing of the show, and there was one person, hold on, let me go ahead and get to him. So we did have like 4 different directors, and this guy's name is Nelson Craig, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, there was 5 different directors.
Oh, five. Apologies.
Yeah. So Nelson Craig did the first episode. He did 4 episodes. And so one of the critiques, which we'll get to, because this was obviously a predominantly Black cast. Well, I can't say predominantly Black. The main characters were Black,
right.
and then there were obviously the supporting were white. But the directing, there was only one Black director, and it was a female, which I'm happy about. That's Chinesca Bravo. But Nelson Craig did the majority of it, and he's a Korean American.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was interesting that they, people were critiquing like, okay, well, this is a mainly Black story. Why are you not having Black directors? I thought that all the directors did a fantastic job, regardless of them being white or whatever. I thought they did a great job.
And the thing is, though, it comes to diversity in the room, and when you have people coming in to give you different perspectives to tell really what essentially is a horror movie or horror show, a thriller, I think it is good to kind of lean on different people from different experiences, especially with their background, probably in thriller and in horror in the past, and so to kind of be true to the film or to the project, having a diversity of directors to, as you had said before, have this streamline, this through line that never failed. You didn't know that it was from one director to another. It felt like it was all seamless, done by one person. So you have to give it up for little Marvin for constructing a story and being a showrunner to make, and and then them being in the writer's room and actually having a plan, which of course Star Wars, J.J. Abrams just said that they had no plan for the last 3 Star Wars. Did you hear about this?
Well, I'm sure you feel vindicated.
I do, but I don't want to go into a Star Wars whole conversation. But
Yeah.
J.J. Abrams
No
came out
plan.
and
How do you
said-
have no plan for Star Wars?
That's what he said. He said they had no plan for the last 3 Star Wars, and that's why that joint was trash. This
yeah.
show had a plan.
It had a plan, and for this to be his first, little Marvin's first undertaking in this, this is like inspiring, right? So it's like when you've done kind of smaller projects, like you and I have done, and not these big blockbuster, big budget Amazon. Now Amazon is what they bought. Who?
They bought MGM Studios.
MGM Studios. So this man now I think he's got some like multi-film or multi-series deal with Amazon now, just off of this series. This is his first foray into doing this. So that's inspiring to know that somebody who just kind of like, I'm going to try my hand at, screenplay writing, and then, being a showrunner for the show that I wrote, and he created this. So you can have your opinion about the plot and the story and the subject matter, but from beginning to end, to me, this was almost flawless. Like, it was a beautifully shot, beautifully composed, just a beautiful 10 episodes of hard to stomach. I'm not going to sit here and lie. It's hard to stomach a lot of it, but it was beautifully done. The horror was beautifully done. And I don't like horror. I don't like horror. So.
I mean, a lot, and I know, Aisha, she's in the chat. She doesn't like horror. That's why she was like, "Is this a horror thriller?" And you said horror. She said, "Oh, okay, thanks. Not gonna watch it."
Yeah. Aisha, trust me, I say I don't like horror, but I can watch horror if it's more on the thriller side. I think this is probably more horror. I'm just going to be honest with you, and I'm not a huge horror fan. But if it's more thriller, I can deal with it. This is horror. This is horror.
This is definitely more of a horror. In that Paranormal Activity, the Conjuring sort of feel. And I think that's where some people sort of missed it. Is that yes, it is about the racial sort of, which brings us to the plot. It does bring us to sort of this racial element of black people moving to neighborhoods and basically getting terrorized for 10 straight days, and it was and they was just relentless with it. But to me, what it did is that it unapologetically said white people are the devil. Or can be, rather.
Metaphorically and physically. And physically. Because Allison Pill's character was the literal devil.
She was.
Okay.
She just played that role so well. But then even, this gentleman right here who is, I think Herm Epps, I believe is his name.
Hiram
Epps, so then he plays sort of, and this is in episode 9, so through the first 8 episodes, we sort of learn a little bit about the family and sort of what they went through, because there was one scene that kind of opens up where they're in North Carolina, and it's the wife home by herself because the husband took the 2 little girls to the movie theater. She had a little boy, and then this white woman comes up with the mob and basically rapes her and then kills the baby. And
what exactly what I was going to just add, what's interesting about that scene is that it was, to me, a stereotype of what white racism is to a lot of white people. A lot of white people, especially liberal leaning, think that racism is, these toothless, hillbilly white people with no education coming to brutalize black people and lynch them. That's what the show gave us in the first couple of episodes. They were leading up to this horrific occurrence that happened to the family that led them out of North Carolina to California. And then when you get to California, which is supposed to be this utopia, supposed to be this kind of like fresh start, he's an engineer, which is like very unheard of. My grandfather left the South to California and was an engineer. He was, worked for IBM and all this stuff. So, and this was this is after he retired. So this is like the 70s, more like the 70s or 60s. So still somewhat in the time frame, but just thinking that you're going to get to this one, northern city, western city, and have this like utopia, but you're still faced with the same racism, just dressed up nicely. It's just a nice petticoats and a nice skirt and a nice hairdo. And it's like, no, the racism followed them because you guys are racist everywhere. You can't leave the South and think you're going to get away from it. It permeates every community in the United States.
Yes.
So that's what I liked about that, showing the stereotype to where they went, which is not the stereotype. It was cookie cutter and respectable white people, but they were horrible, just as horrible as that, the hillbilly couple that did that to her.
Exactly. And sort of what that hillbilly couple did was sort of like, in, even though they stretched it out, it was this one horrific moment. It seemed like they were happy and everything was good before that happened, but then because of this one horrific moment, that sort of leads us through the episode of like why they moved, or why that they sort of have these sort of thoughts about them, why the oldest daughter doesn't want to be like the mother.
Right.
Because she wanted to be white, because she was looking at Doris Day magazines and hanging around with a white girl in school, which, really wasn't. It was actually the devil. But the thing is, though, like, people love The Conjuring and like Paranormal Activity and Freddy Krueger and all of these shows, and, those are all, not real. Like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar said a long time ago that white people believe in ghosts more than they believe in racism. So then it felt like that Little Marvin sort of put this show out there to inform people of like, no, white people, like, we're not scared of ghosts. We're scared of you. You are the spook by the door. You are the monsters in the closet. You are the creatures underneath the bed that keep us up at night, because everything that happened to them was tragic, even with the husband, and because he was a World War II veteran, and sort of what the tragedies that he went through in his past that sort of came up, into his character. And then the mother, what that white family did to her, and even the white teacher with the little girl, And I think it was just so unapologetic. So yes, even though it is a horror, and I know some of y'all aren't into horrors, but if you can just take even that, and then this whole, torture, porn, racism, torture porn out the way, if you just look at it just from the standpoint of like, they're really calling white people out for like the horrific things that they doing, but put it in sort of a horror genre, it's amazing.
Right.
It's amazing.
Yeah, what I liked about it, so yeah, some people are asking questions in the chat, so let's go to the chat. They're asking, okay, is it scary? Yeah. Most people, is it scary? Is it like Get Out? So it's like Get Out in the sense that it's this kind of veil of respectable white people, kind of, they in Get Out, they kind of had this pretense of the arboretums, whatever that's not arboretum, they had a name, Armitages, I think their name was, the Armitage. This kind of veil of being accepting and respectable, but obviously they were the devil. Right. Really, they were snatching souls and bodies of black men and black women. So it's not like Jordan Peele. I think that's been like the biggest misconception, because Jordan Peele kind of kicked off this racial horror genre in a way. People are comparing it, and again, that's because of just lack of content. So anything that's horror, it's like, is it like Jordan Peele? Well, not necessarily. Like, to me, this is not like, they kept comparing this to Jordan Peele's Us. The only thing that is like Jordan Peele's Us is that little girl, because she's in it. That's it. That little girl, the bigger girls in Us. That's it. I don't see any other similarities. I mean, it was shot beautifully too, but as far as the story, I don't see it. If we're going to compare it, like we talked about, if we're going to compare it to anything, I would have to say Lovecraft Country, only because Lovecraft Country took place in kind of a northern city during the Great Migration time frame as well, and they dealt with the racist South, the racist Midwest, and all that stuff, and the supernatural coming after them as well. But it's still not like Lovecraft Country either. There's like completely different feel to it. The plot is, to your credit, is a lot smoother than Lovecraft. To me, it's incredibly seamless. It's easy to follow. I think the things that people are getting hung up on, which I understand, is the graphic nature of what happens to this black family. It's the graphic nature of what happens to children, and the fact that it seems like black people are relentlessly tortured, not only in the physical by this white community that is like incensed that these black people had the audacity to move into Compton, but it's also the fact that once you get into the series, you realize that a man who was supposed to be holy, because the Puritan man was supposed to be like a reverend or some sort, or pastor, or
let's go and pull him up. Go ahead.
Yeah, so it's the fact that you've got, not only do you have, current present day white people trying to get them out of Compton, because they don't want them bringing their property value down. They don't want them making it comfortable for other Black people to move in and all these other things. But you've got this historical story of this religious community that was founded someplace in Northern California.
Yeah,
This man here,
1865. It was
18
around around the emancipation, almost emancipation, right?
That's right. Yeah. So they were in Northern California, which is where I'm from. And this Black couple had because again, they were on wagons and stuff. They didn't, horse-drawn wagons. So they had broken a wheel. And this man was, at the time, a good man, it seemed like. I'll help you guys. Fine, come in. I'll help you. You guys can stay here while I help you get your wheel fixed and all this stuff. And they were, of course, skeptical. Specifically, the wife was skeptical, but he was actually pretty pure at that point of helping them, because he had this kind of Jesus will help all, and kind of this really open mindset until he meets that little boy. There's a little boy he fosters who kind of leads him to the dark side and essentially says, I'll give you eternal life if you make sure that Black people have hell on earth, and they don't, essentially making a deal with the devil to make sure that our lives are hellish for eternity. So the supernatural powers that are affecting this family, because the land that they live on in Compton was the land that these Puritans lived on in the 1860s. So this whole kind of haunting really is on the ground that they were burnt, I think it was their church had burned down, because that Black family that they were helping fix their wagon wheel, as they decided, they're witches, and which is one of their favorite things to do. If you help me and I don't understand how you help me, then you must be a witch or a warlock. So they essentially tortured that Black couple in 1860 who they were supposed to help, and they cursed that white community. And the devil in turn, it's kind of confusing, guys. The devil in turn basically said, I will give you eternal life if you make sure that Black people have a hard time in life forever, right? Basically.
And even because even the priest, he lost his wife and child, and he kept begging the Lord, right, why is it that you took my wife and child away from me? And so then when he gets up to go back to his town, he finds this little boy who was abandoned, and then he sort of adopts him. And then, of course, him being so happy that now he has somebody in his family, he trusts him in everything that he does. And this boy starts manipulating. He doesn't even say anything really throughout the show. All he does is just pulls out little verses, scriptures, which, is kind of poignant, because the devil will use the scripture in order to manipulate people.
That's right.
And that's what the little boy did in order to make the man blind, because even during that episode, and it's all the way in episode 9, so you have to go through 1 through 8 to really get to it. But once you get to episode 9, then you start seeing, this guy, he's starting to lose his vision, and he's even looking at the Bible really close. And it's because he's losing sight of this pure life that he had. And then he starts agreeing with the townspeople, and then pulls the scripture out and says that all Black people need to be damned. But then the Black woman, she starts screaming at them and curses them. And then as soon as she curses them, then the whole town goes up in flames.
That's right.
And with the town going up in flames, the little boy takes the priest downstairs, and that's whenever he shakes his hand and says, you will have eternal life as long as you do my bidding, which is destroying all white people. So then we literally
all black people.
Sorry. Yeah. Yes. So and what I meant to say is that what we saw is the white devil being created in front of us, who was a person of the cloth, who was supposed to be a Puritan sort of Quaker, which history would tell us was on Black people's side. So it's sort of this double thing of the devil will find his way to get into any spaces.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because as people will point out, a lot of slavery was manipulation of scripture, right? So all that we're seeing in this show is manipulation of scripture, of the devil pointing to certain passages and saying Black people are really just not supposed to be on this earth. They are damned. They are this, they are that. And if you help me, you'll have eternal life. And that's exactly, like you said, that's exactly what happened. So what I liked about that, obviously it's jarring to witness that. What I liked about that is that it felt almost like what happens. It felt almost like life, current, actual life, as if there is some sort of curse. Sometimes I almost feel that way. There's some sort of curse, all the things that happened in 2020 and all the things that continuously happen to Black people. It's what in the world? It's what more newsworthy thing is going to happen that affects Black people in the way that it affects us? So the show kind of touched on some things I think a lot of people kind of internally feel like, I just can't believe we've gone through all this. Our ancestors have gone through so much. And here we are in 2021, still dealing with police brutality, still dealing with this stuff. So it touched on the fact that a lot of, you know, outwardly nice looking white people who seem well-meaning, who seem, you know, mild-mannered. Because that woman, you know, Allison Pill, she smiled the whole time. That's the one thing that was interesting. And she even brought that up. She's like, and she said this on an interview that I saw of her. She said, one thing about white people, she's like, and I'm guilty of this, is we will smile through anything. And even if it's something that we shouldn't be doing, that, you know, it's a horrible situation, we will smile through anything. And I'm like, and that's what made it chilling, because she did.
She did. Oh my goodness! Yeah, I just want to pull up this picture again of her just giving this smirk. Look at her, boy. I mean, and she pale white too. I mean,
exactly.
She
Exactly.
But you know, it's so good to your point. You know that they like the one thing too is that how the devil, you know, this cursed spirit, he was manipulating the family on a whole different level. It had nothing to do with the white people in the neighborhood. Like this family had to fight both battles. Not only their house being cursed, but then also the people in their neighborhood being racist. You know,
right.
And they don't die at the end too. Spoiler alert, just to let you guys know, it's it's not all bad.
It's not all bad. It's not all bad, but they are working in conjunction though. I mean, even though it's two different battles, they're working in conjunction. I mean,
they are.
You know, yeah, that's all I can say. The spirit, the supernatural, demonic forces and the white racist forces are just kind of one and the same. And this show kind of showed that.
Right. Oh, and there goes the church and the house. You know, so we said that the
same neighborhood
down, and then that's the same neighborhood where the house that the family moved into.
That's right.
So
yeah.
It really got really deep in that, you know, in that level. But then the one thing that each person had to do was fight their own demons. Everybody had their own demon that they had to beat on their own. The little girl, she had a teacher from a book that she literally had to tear out of a book, you know, the pages from the book that she was reading in order to get that demon out. I can't remember how the teenage daughter, she was able to, I guess whenever she finally became sort of more accepting of her mother, I believe is sort of how she beat her demon, which is this white girl in this scene right here, to make her feel like she needs to be white, you know. And of course, black people, we deal with colorism, you know, in our society, and you know, us wanting blue eyes and blonde hair and all these other things. And then the father,
to fit in.
Exactly. And then, you know, the mother, you know, and just like Anina Noki Rose, you had the man in the black hat. And this scene right here was very disturbing, where
it was
the girl
so disturbing.
had the white paint on her and was dancing in front of her white colleagues. But this guy right here, the one who played the Sambo character,
yes,
his acting was amazing, but the way that he was able to manipulate, because he was the only, but even though, you know, they wiped his face and he became white, but he was the only black character that was a demon demonizing the family. Because, you know, the little girl, she had the white teacher, the teenage daughter had the white girl, and then the man in the black hat was the mother. But they had to get to the black man, and the only way they can do it is by making him feel insufferable, like almost like embarrassed, you know. And he kept bringing up this point of like embarrassment of like you leaving your wife and these white people talking junk to you, and really attacking his ego, like he knew exactly what to say and what to do. And you know, black men, we definitely don't want to be considered no Sambo character.
Yeah, that character I think was probably, I mean, all of them were awful. All of the demons that were haunting each family member, because like you said, not only were they dealing with the racist neighborhood and the racist horrific act that happened to them in North Carolina, but they're dealing with individual demons that kind of started in North Carolina because of what happened to their little brother and what happened to their mother. They kind of brought them with them, but I think that house kind of activated them more, because that house is on that kind of land where it was burnt down, and the devil made a deal with you know, the Puritans or whatever. But you're right, I think the father's demon was definitely highlighting the black man's shortcomings, like he was playing that up. And I think that was an interesting thing, because I think a lot of times, specifically during this time frame, if like, you know, the fact that his wife was raped, I don't know if we can say on YouTube, I know YouTube is going to be weird about that, she was sexually assaulted,
Yes.
while her son was severely injured, mortally injured. And he wasn't there. So the fact that he couldn't protect her, the fact that he couldn't protect his son, that was highlighted over and over and over again. Like, just kind of, like you said, highlighting the shortcomings, highlighting, you're like his manhood was being tested over and over again by this character, which is what we talked about, where I said, after he had that kind of terrible couple episodes with his boss, where his boss kind of demeaning him and kind of like, okay, boy, and didn't say that, but in such a way, kind of was treating him like he was beneath him.
Right.
And then it kind of snapped at him, where he kind of just was like, I'm about to go off. And he did. He had a little spree where he went kind of off because it created a monster.
He created a monster.
Like all the stuff that he had to deal with, all the things that happened to his family that he had no control over. He had no control over how he was treated at work. He had no control over the fact that this neighborhood that he bought sight unseen was putting, dolls hung on nooses, burning up his grass, spray painting things, peeing on his laundry. I mean, all the things you could think of that are just terrible things that could happen to you have happened to this man. And he's had no control over it. So that's what his demon was like. You have no control over anything. Look what happened to your life. Look what happened to your kids. You don't have any control. You're useless, kind of thing. And it really turned him into a monster. And that's what happens because of racism. It turns people into monsters.
Yeah, because and he kept egging him on about killing people. Just like at the end when he was like, they took your son away from you, and he almost shot that pregnant woman. Well, now if you'd have shot that pregnant woman, then I probably would have been through with this show. But luckily he did not. Luckily, because I'd be like, little Marvin, for real, you gonna make?
Little Marvin, going too far now.
you don't went too far, little Marvin. Come on now, bro. But thank you guys for being in the chat. Of course, this is Through a Culture Lens. Today our topic is we're doing a breakdown on the Amazon show Them. And Valerie, I don't know if we answered your question. It's actually on. She asked if it was on Netflix. It's actually on Amazon Prime. So if you have Prime, so you can get your 2-day delivery, then you can go ahead and watch it on there. And then CP time today. Uncle Freddie, he said that he was that he came in. It's all good, Uncle. It's all good, Uncle Pete. It's all good, Uncle Pete. And then Omar, he says the husband should have told her blacks couldn't sign a deed in that part of Compton. The highlights the trust issues of black community. He should have told her. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that was the one thing that really bothered me.
Yeah, the honesty, the transparency, because there's a scene where they talk about, and I think I can probably pull it up in here. Yeah, it's this part where it says no lot has any traces of black blood in it.
And that's the part right covenant.
Yep, the covenant. Correct. The part that says, and so the wife didn't even realize, as you can see her face, that, no Negro blood isn't supposed to be in this house. That I would say was definitely a character flaw of his, because I'm pretty sure that, but he knew that if the wife read that after what she had been through, she was not going to move there. She wasn't going. She wasn't about to go there.
Yeah, but that was that. After what happened to her and their son, why would you want to? I understand being a forerunner and being first to kind of break open a seal, but after what happened to her, why bring her in that environment?
Right.
And that's why I was happy. She was like, we could have been in Watts with our cousins. He was like, well, that's where they put everybody. But it's like, at least you would have had community.
Yes.
Because you don't have that here.
Yes.
And Valerie, this is based off of, and why don't you kind of tell that story? This is based off of some true events. It's not not everybody is real, but some of this is true events that happen.
Correct. Yeah. So it's sort of softly based on a gentleman named Emory Holmes. He moved from Alabama to California, and when he moved to California in Compton, no, I think it was the San Fernando Valley.
San Fernando Valley. There you go. Thank you. Thank you for keeping me on top.
And so he was dealing with a lot of racism. And he actually went to RAND, which RAND is a huge government think tank. There's actually one in DC. I actually used to work for RAND. But their headquarters in Santa Monica. And so he worked there, but then in the neighborhood that he lived in, they were putting up nooses and, really trying to drive them out in just this horrific way. But what he was able to do is he was able to actually go to court and actually win a case to where, he didn't get beat up or anything like that. But then a piece of it that they take from is actually Nat King Cole, because Nat King Cole moved to a place in Southern California, and the Covenant, which was a newly formed sort of white HOA to remove people who are not non-white Christians from their neighborhoods. And so they burned in Nat King Cole's. And also, I think we have the articles in the show notes, correct?
I think so. Hey,
Yeah.
Mom.
Yeah. Hey, Mama Candace, how you doing, girl? And so they burned on Nat King Cole's yard, nigger heaven, and they actually poisoned Nat King Cole's dog, to once again agitate him enough to get out. So, they definitely take pieces of African American experiences of moving from the South to the city, but then of course they exaggerate it for dramatic effect. Everybody has their own creative licenses, and we know sometimes they take some things, but they never, so they saying that it's sort of based on true events, which of course gives them that license, saying that this is not a real family. The Emerys aren't a real family, even though their last name is Emery, but the guy who this loosely based on, his first name is Emery, which I thought was kind of crazy.
I mean, they don't really. I think the thing that it doesn't even matter if these people aren't true. We know what they did. We know what they've done. So we don't need them to be this couple, this family to be true. We, to be an actual, had to have been an actual living person. We know the horrific things that have been done to our babies,
right?
To ourselves. Like, we know all of that. So they're just taking actual occurrences that have happened throughout history to us with no repercussions. Like they faced no, there's no judicial system that put them in jail for doing what they did to us. So this was essentially like what has happened to us time and time again with no kind of retribution
at all. And my mom, she actually makes a point of acculturation, may impact both social and psychological well-being. This is what some of what you are saying sounds like. Yeah, basically, just the acculturation of our society, and even not just the acculturation of us being stripped of whatever roots that we had from Africa whenever we came here, but then also the acculturation of the fear that they wanted to instill in us from generation to generation to generation, to where we just couldn't feel comfortable whatsoever. Even though if you see in that opening scene when they move in there, like the father, he's like smiling, like driving through the neighborhood, and then his face kind of gets droopy, and then even the wife is like, brother, where did you just move us to?
Exactly.
And
exactly.
And but then the acculturation also of us wanting to be as close to white as possible. So it's like, they didn't want to move to Watts because that's where, common black folks live. Because, common folks live there. So he was an engineer. You know what I'm saying? He was in World War II. So he wanted to make sure that his family went to the good school, manicured lawns, all these other things, to where he can be proud of as a black man that, went through as much as he went through, but you know, it's so bad. But kind of moving on, because there were some critiques that came out about the show. My goodness. Go
so ahead. Basically, guys, everybody hated this. So most black people, yeah. So most black people that watch this, because even I watched it, I started the series before Michael did, and he was like, and I'm like, listen, don't read anything, because nobody black likes this. Mainly because of, there's a couple things. So Lena Waithe is an executive producer on this project, and she had some probably input on like the music, I would say, because some of it had some touches that she did in Queen and Slim, and some stuff that I've seen. I'm sure she had some touches here and there that she was able to kind of, convey through the series, but she really was not creatively, necessarily over this. So it really, the fact, they just saw her name and they just thought, okay, you're just going to give me another black trauma porn show where everybody blacks don't get jacked up and nobody white's going to get any sort of, comeuppance. There's going to be nothing, nothing's going to happen to them. There's just going to be us getting messed up. So people were upset with that. And then they were upset with the fact that it is traumatic. I mean, it took me probably 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks to really finish.
Yeah, it took you a while to get through it. Yeah, because I remember I started it after you, and then I just binged it in a couple of days, and I kept on getting.
Couldn't do it.
Listen, people. Amber was not happy with me because I was like, "Have you seen it yet? Have you seen it?" She said, "Boy, I'm gonna get to it." She was not.
After the episode that we highlighted in North Carolina, what happened to them, to herself and the baby, I was like, I need a break, and that was like episode 3 or 4. I was like, I need a break. It's a lot, but the reason why we were able to power through, whereas a lot of other black people are just panning it and saying, don't watch it. It's too traumatic. It's like useless. Like there's no actual purpose for all this trauma. I actually think that if you take away, which is hard if you're black, if you take away, it's so hard. And I didn't even necessarily do this. I didn't take away the trauma of seeing black people brutalized on film for me to watch it. I
Mm-hmm.
took it as these things happened, and I feel like it's almost highlighting the people that had to suffer through this just by existing. So the Black
Mm-hmm.
people that just wanted a better life and were met with this hostility,
Mm-hmm.
this kind of brazen abuse.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people that, you know, were minding their business in the South, and here comes a mob of people just messing with them for no reason and killing loved ones. I felt that even though we're kind of all worn out with this narrative and worn out with seeing ourselves, you know, getting brutalized on screen, I still think that this gave room to show how, because this is probably one of the most horrible, like dramatic things that I've seen done to people. Like the baby scene, I don't know if I've ever seen anything that horrible. Obviously, they don't show it. I've never seen anything that bad when it comes to some of these racial movies that we watch. We've seen a lot of adults get messed up.
Probably Rosewood was probably,
yeah, maybe Rosewood.
Rosewood was pretty brutal, you know, but that
was
you know, but I haven't seen that in a while because
neither have I.
It just I couldn't live in Northern Virginia if I watched Rosewood again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But just watching it to give those people that they're kind of flowers almost and to show no matter what part of the country you're in, white people gonna white people. They gonna do it.
White people don't
Alabama to DC to California to Colorado. If you find a pocket that doesn't want you there, even in 2021, they will make it known. And I think that this was for them. This show we're not them, even though all the writers are saying that the Black people are them. The them is them to me.
Yes, to me, yeah, because I've seen some things where they were talking about them means the Black family in the white neighborhood. No, the them is the white neighbors and the white devil messing with this Black family that is just minding their own business.
Exactly.
That's,
they're the them.
They're the them, you know, so that's what it's about. And so for them to sort of say that this is a Jordan Peele ripoff, okay, for
Disagree.
one thing, this is better than Us. Sorry.
I didn't like Us.
Us was all right. It was because it was different. I guess I give it a pass because it was different. But this was better than that. Get Out was a good movie. I'm not going to take it away, but stylistically,
It was better.
This was better. This
it was better.
So people to say that this is a Jordan Peele ripoff. Not once again, Jordan Peele's a phenomenal, you know, film writer. He won an Oscar. You know what I'm saying? He won an Oscar for best original.
I love Get Out. But
I love Get Out. It's a great movie.
This is different.
But this right here is such a different thing. And like you said, people, and it's not even white people really. I mean, you know, some white people, but it's really Black people who are trying to, once again, put it into this one form of like, oh, well, if we're talking about Black trauma, then it has to be a ripoff of Jordan Peele. That is, why can't we just have our own stories? You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Why can't we just talk about other things? And then, you know, and it was mainly, because I know Rotten Tomato gave it a 63%. So before, remember when we first looked at Rotten Tomato, it was like at 46%. Seemed like people are starting to kind of come around with it. But out of 100, you saying that this is a D
don't agree.
Is just you're not.
It's emotional response. It's an emotional response.
That's all it is.
And like I said, I get, and that's why I said that you guys are getting, our title of this episode is y'all are getting this wrong. Like y'all are off, and everybody is entitled to their opinion, and everybody's entitled to their own self-care, whatever that looks like. So if this is messing with you emotionally and mentally, which I think is what's happening, and I understand that's why it took me so long to finish it. This is messing with you emotionally and mentally because of just the trauma of being Black in general, and then watching what happened to this family, which a lot of it is a juxtaposition to what happened to some of our families. Like some of our families moving from one place to another were met with, animosity and hostility and abuse. So this is just one generation to two generations away of something is in our DNA. Like we feel the trauma because of our family's history, with, segregation and just the white mob mentality. Like we understand that. But I guess for me, what Get Out, because Jordan Peele, even when you listen to some of Jordan Peele's like interviews about Get Out, some of the like theories and some of the like depth that people found in the film, he's like, oh, I guess I didn't think about. Like sometimes watching him, it's like he doesn't give me the meat and the potatoes that I want with some of his films, where I feel like we're all thinking deeply, and he's like, I I didn't think about it like that. I just added it in for whatever. I'm like,
right.
But little Marvin, reading some of his interviews and stuff like that, he actually really thought about this whole process
for years.
And it comes across, it definitely comes across as somebody who has thought about this, and he even said, a lot of Ashley, which is the husband, I can't remember his name in the movie.
Yeah.
A lot of his frustrations I feel as a Black man. Mm-hmm. So a lot of it is me pouring into him because I felt like, when I worked at certain jobs, I was stifled, or I wasn't listened to, or I was put on the back burner, or nobody, my ideas didn't move any place because of me just being a Black man in this company. So a lot of that anger, he's like, have I ever screamed in the bathroom? No, but have I wanted to? Yes, many times, So he thought about this. He really put this together in a way that, yes, it's hard to digest, but it's, for me, I sat through it and I stomached it because of how great it was, put together and how seamless it was. And because I know that this actually happened to my ancestors. So it was like a way for me to compartmentalize. I'm like, I can watch this because this is what happened to them and they deserve to have this talked about and not run from this. Like, I'm not running from this because this happened.
Right, exactly. I mean, my Aunt Nita, she just says, the 100th-year anniversary of the Tulsa, and they minding their business, like.
They minding their business too. And there's going to be something on OWN next week. I think it's Angela Bassett and her husband are doing something on OWN for Tulsa. So there's a couple different Tulsa things coming up. So we should talk about that too. But yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. And then my mom too, like her parents, migrated from Texas to California and had to, just getting from that there to there was a whole situation. Can't stop here, can't sleep there, can't eat here. I mean, it's just, Yeah,
it's just terrible thing. And then of course we have this article up here that says Stephen King was appalled by the first episode. When I read, this is clickbait. Just want to let y'all know, because when I read this article, Stephen King actually said that the first episode literally scared him. That's how, like when they say appalled, like he was actually scared. And this is Stephen King, who is known as the horror guy. For him to watch an episode and actually him get like a little nervous, it tells you something about the storytelling. And that's right. The thing that we just want to sort of get across is that, we know that a lot of you guys are hearing a lot of things on social media, a lot of people, which me and Amber, we both get, but the thing is though, we're coming from a filmmaking standpoint. That's why we wanted to do this show, because we know the show came out, in April, early April. But with all of these people out here who are journalists, and God bless them, they know, they know how to write a good story, but do they know the craft of filmmaking? Do they know sort of like the storytelling things, and that's what we just want to do, is just tell you like, no, this is so much deeper than just Black people being treated horribly wrong. It's a so much deeper story and wrapped into this horror genre that white people love. And so this is something that I'm pretty sure that got white people to jump on it, that hopefully will get them to at least accept their white privilege in the things that happen and not have to say, well, this is over now. No. Because one thing that we didn't even cover in this is how they talked about the redlining. And I've never really seen a show or a movie really talk about redlining as far as them doing.
Yeah, talk about that real quick. People are popping, so we'll go a little bit later today. Go ahead and talk about that real quick.
Yeah. So, redlining, of course, is whenever they sectioned off neighborhoods that specifically for Black families. And what they wanted to do is bring in, I think, more people into certain areas of Compton because they wanted to raise the housing prices and the interest rate on them. And they knew that white flight was going to happen, so then they would move white people out to this way. If I know there's a lot more to it, but I know it's happening a lot more in California, right? Right?
Yeah, it is. Redlining is pretty big in California. I mean, even now. I mean, I watched a documentary on one redlining area in Santa Monica. It covers part of the ocean, which of course nobody can live in the ocean. So they've got really weird and very predatory ways of separating and classifying certain areas in California.
Yeah, and of course they set it up to where this family, is, almost chosen to go here. They even have the police officer, working with them to
with the real estate agent, right?
With the real estate agent to try to make sure that these Black people don't go too crazy, because they knew that this white mob was going to come after them. But it was all about the money. It was all about the money. And they even had this scene at the beginning. I believe it was episode 6 or 7, day 6 or 7, when they had this table and the white real estate agent was there sitting with these white men who are talking about zoning off, and they had like blue areas, they had green areas, and then they had red areas, and Watts was obviously a red area, and they were like, we need to get people into Compton because we're developing these other neighborhoods here that we want white people to go to, but if they love Compton so much, they're not going to move to this other area, so let's start slowly moving in black people. But then what we can do is then I think make the interest rate of their houses to where they'll never get underneath it. Like they will
never
always
get underneath
be
it.
upside down on
Underwater.
That house. Yep. Underwater on that house. And so it's, so that's another thing that you really don't get to see in shows that they put in here. So it's like these true elements wrapped into this suspenseful thriller show that once again, it was just done so well, and so this hate, we understand black people. We have been through a lot. We have seen and heard, and I mean, just today they were talking about three officers getting charged for the murder of another black man in Tacoma, Washington, where he was handcuffed and restrained, and that was coming to light. Or that man in Louisiana that we found out about that they said died
in 2019.
In 2019, who died in the car accident apparently, but then now they have footage of them dragging him out and then beating him to, so we understand, we are tired of seeing this, so if that's something you probably just can't stomach, we totally understand. But that doesn't give you credence to critique a show like this as harshly as you did, because you're coming from such an emotional space. And that's really the thing that we just want to kind of remind people about, is that the show is good on its own. I mean, out of the ones that they compared it with, like you say Lovecraft Country, you like Lovecraft Country more than I do. But I did appreciate it, but remember my whole thing was just some of the storytelling things about it. But I love the show for what the premise was, showing black people, getting a supernatural world, I love seeing that, but I just thought there was some storytelling holes in it. This didn't have it at all. No. All the way up until the end, which, we don't know because it's an anthology, so we don't know if they're going to continue with the Emery family.
I bet you they won't.
Probably not.
I have a feeling it's going to be, so this is probably going to be more like an American Horror Story where each season is a little different. But the one thing I want to add to the whole, and I see, actually there's some good comments. So this is one thing I didn't know. My mom just shared. She said, my grandfather worked as a cook when he was young, and a white woman was accidentally decapitated by the elevator. He took off because he knew that they were going to blame him for the faulty elevator. They thought he was going to be, in the, I guess, proximity of what had happened. And because he was black, he must have done something to the elevator for this. So he took off. I mean, I believe that. And then I see Omar, redlining still occurs today, especially in the banking world. And Valerie said redlining is totally illegal. But think about it this way. Is there really much difference between redlining and gerrymandering? Exactly. Not much.
Not much.
Not much at all. But I mean, this story had layers, and I just wish people, like you said, would just kind of get past the emotion and realize that the stuff that affected our grandparents in the 50s, there's a cause and effect, and we're living the effect right now. And you could take the emotion away and sit down and watch the story and really see that, we're really not far from 1953. We're not that far. Some of the things that are happening, we're not that far off. And the one thing I wanted to point out, which I kind of was saying before, is that, you have, the different types of white people, some white people thinking that they're, pious, a little bit better and a little bit more, upper, middle class. And I think that's kind of what happens now, where I think that white people think they're so liberal now that they're not, they're very conscious about not being racist and being inclusive. But there's a difference when let's say a black family moves into a white neighborhood now, because as we know, like DC is still very segregated. Lots of places are still very segregated. So the black family moved into, I don't know, McLean, some upper crust neighborhood in Virginia or wherever. I'm sure there's probably going to still be some like, there goes the neighborhood vibes. Like those vibes are still there. But what makes it interesting too, the Allison Pill character, really quickly, we're going a little over, guys. We'll wrap it up in a second. But the Allison... Exactly. The Allison Pill character really is reminiscent of the Karen, right? She's like Queen Karen. She's Queen Karen who needs to mind her business because her business is all jacked up. So in the show, she's got a horrific...
Oh, yeah. Let me find that. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
In the show, she got a horrific family dynamic. So her father and mother, she hasn't seen in years. She's estranged from them, but she needs a little bit of money because her closeted DL husband keeps spending the money. So they don't ever have any money because he's going to these gay bars on the down low, and so she's always like, what's up with the bank account? And he acts like he doesn't know what she's talking about. So she had to go to her parents, which was a reluctance because she hasn't talked to them in years. Well, this scene foreshadows her possibly having some sort of incestuous relationship with her father in order to get money. So this woman who is terrorizing this black family across the street, who believes they're going to, decrease her home value, who believes that their very presence is going to just ruin the entire vibe of the neighborhood, and it's going to increase more black people moving in, has a whole, just ridiculous family dynamic. Okay. It's like, why don't you worry about the fact that you have an incestuous father and a gay husband? Worry about that. But this is kind of the kind of historical thing with some white women. They always worry about everybody else's business but their own. And this character was kind of that Karen character of today.
Exactly, because like in this scene, like they're showing right now, like, yeah, she's sitting down. She looks kind of calm, right, guys? But then, she's actually in a bunker that the milkman, who she was flirting with since season 1, kidnaps her. She actually has the final straw of dealing with these black people, goes out to the country, to the milkman, to say, you need to kill these,
You need to kill these black people.
You need to kill these black people. And what happens? He drugs her up, puts her in a bunker, and then she tries to escape and stabs him. And then as soon as she's running in the field with the animals, and he shoots her down like a dog, just like how she tried to say that the black family across the way were dogs. So
we're animals.
The animal and the devil was directly in her house, but her vision was on these black people because they were bringing down property value. They were doing this. They were doing that. But then yet you thought that this milkman, that you were having some sort of inappropriate relationship with, was actually the person who you should have feared the most of. And he was within your community,
Exactly.
And
it was interesting that her husband, her down low husband, was the least moved by the fact that the black people were there, because if he's going through his own internal kind of homosexuality struggle, I think he probably felt othered internally and was like, I'm not messing with them. I got my own closet of things that I'm storing. I don't need to mess with them. So that's why every time the mob of white men would get together to kind of terrorize them, he was reluctant. Like, why? And that's kind of why Allison Pill latched onto the milkman, because her own husband wasn't doing any evil for her. Right. So she's like, I need someone to do some evil for me because my husband won't do it.
Right.
So that was an interesting thing.
The HOA meeting, and she gave him the speech, but then she went up there and gave it because he didn't show up. Because you're right. Why would him, who he knows if he was to be honest with himself, he would be ostracized by the same community. Community. So he's like, I don't have no problem with these black people. And then, my uncle, he just said in the chat that we have a similar story where my great uncle had to leave town for the death of a white man. Now, I don't know. I don't know if my great uncle had anything to do with the death of the white man and he had to leave. That would be a better story.
But that's a story that probably follows black men in our families, through history, where just because we're in the proximity of somebody white who died or was catcalled or whatever, they could be deemed as the threat or deemed as the what. So that story is like, can't believe that happened to my grandfather or your uncle. This is just.
But the thing is, though, even though we didn't hear about it, which of course, family, y'all got to start sharing more stories. Okay, y'all got to share.
We've been talking about that.
Y'all got to pass it down.
We need more stories, y'all. Y'all need to tell us more instead of this. Oh, by the way, they need to drop a gem of a story on us. Like, why didn't I know about this 20 years ago?
Exactly. We got to share some more of them, folks. We got to get around the campfire and talk about it. But and I guess the thing is, I guess I don't know, like. Is there anything else that we can really say about this show? I mean, other than that it was just amazing and that it was good and that it was, I don't know. I think 64% on Rotten Tomato, which of course you don't like Rotten Tomato, and I don't like Rotten Tomato either. But I just like to see what the writers are talking about, and then what it does is just confirms to me that they don't know what they're talking about. Straight up, they don't know what they're talking about. Because it was a 46, it's starting to raise up, but I think people just looked at this show completely on the opposite. I don't think they even tried to look for the point for it. This is not a read the room type of situation, like how I feel about certain artists who come out with songs that are not appropriate for the moment or for the time. This is not one of those situations where you had to read the room. This story needed to be told in this way in order to get people's attention, and it just gives such a visceral response to it that I don't know. I think that it's just so slept on. I think it's just so slept on.
I think the only pushback I'll give you on that comment is I think it's sort of a, and I said this to you a couple weeks ago, it's sort of a read the room moment because of how 2020 was. So if this was pushed out a little bit further, maybe people would have been less sensitive about it. I don't know, but I actually don't think there was really a good time, to be honest with you, because as you just told me, there's somebody in Washington that was killed by the police. We just found out about the guy in Louisiana. So there's never going to be a time where we're not killed by some, ridiculous circumstance, unfortunately. So.
And Brandon Taylor's killers are still loose.
Exactly.
So,
there's really no good time for this,
really
honestly.
Like when are we gonna wait until things settle down, until we get reparations? I don't, like this.
Exactly.
There's just no time for it. So and then my aunt, she kind of chimes in and says that the great uncle, the story is a little different, but that's how our family got from Georgia to New Jersey. So even in that connection of white people is the reason why we had to leave where we were at, and it's just sad.
See. That's why the story needs to be told. And also needs to be told in this way, because racism is a psychological, it's a psychological, it's a physical, it's an emotional, it's a metaphysical burden, all of it.
Right.
Because even if you're minding your business like we do every day, and we're working from home and doing all this stuff, so we're not affected by it because we're not having to be, in front of people like we used to before COVID. It's still a burden to turn on the news and hear about somebody who was brutally murdered in Washington. That's a physical and emotional burden.
Right. Exactly.
And it's still, if you have any sort of sense of community or justice or just wanting fair, just fairness and equity, then it's going to be a burden to you. And I just think that this show is just kind of highlighting the physical, the emotional trauma of just being Black from 1619 to now, from 1600s to now. It's just, it's nothing has really changed outside of the brutality has lessened, and it's a different form. It's a nicer form.
It is.
It's a more covert form. It's not in your face like it used to be.
Right.
I mean, that's really the only change.
Absolutely. My aunt actually said some white people smuggled my uncle. See, girl, we got to get on the phone. I got to talk.
You got to talk to you.
So you talking about white people smuggling my great uncle up to New Jersey? Okay. See, I'm gonna call. I can't.
That's some stories you need. Okay. Auntie Juanita, you got to talk to her, because that's too much good stuff right there. And my mom with my grandfather. I didn't know about that.
I know. But again, and then another thing too is that Black people do not seem weak in this. This Black family is not weak. That mother, the father, they are so strong, and we
needed that.
They was not playing. That mother, she went out there with a gun. Like in the second episode, they're like, "Y'all gonna quit messing with me." She punched Allison Peel, right? Or
yep.
Well, yeah, in the face.
Allison Peel, yeah.
Yeah. The villain lady,
right.
Like she punched her in the face. So
yep.
This ain't no meek and mild sort of Black people just taking it on the chin and just being scared in the corner. No, when we talk about how Black people should react in a horror, in a way, this is it. This is when you say Black people would have done this and would have done this. I mean, there's a couple of parts where I'm like, I probably would have been a little bit more scared. But once again, it's a story. You had to lean into it, but they was not meek at all.
And I think that's I know Omar and I have talked about that, and that's been a lot of people's kind of pushback when it comes to Black people in these sort of films, where we just come across as okay, I'll bow down to you. No, nobody was bowing.
Right.
Nobody was bowing. Number one, I think that the other critique, and then we'll let you guys go in a few minutes. I think the other critique is that people didn't feel like the Black family in this got any kind of retribution against the white people in that neighborhood.
Right.
And to that, I disagree and agree. I disagree in the sense that they were all alive. They all made it out, which is good. I do believe that the ending could have been a little bit more dynamic. I think I brought that up to you. I think the ending is satisfactory, but I don't think it's enough for what was done to them in that neighborhood.
True.
But then we have to remember, though, there's a couple of scenes where we don't know if these white people are dead, that this couple kind of had some run-ins. So the wife was put into a mental institution for bringing her baby's corpse with them from North Carolina to California. And then they discovered it and thought she was crazy. And they put her in a mental institution. So she handled that doctor who was basically giving these Black women lobotomies, basically. making sure that they were just completely just vacant. So she tore that woman up and escaped. And then the husband shot a police officer. So that, to me, those were like those were some good moments.
Especially the white police officer who was doing them wrong, through the whole show. So it's like,
exactly.
We got some retribution. So trust me, like once again, of course we wanted that ultimate victory of like all of them burning, and then we just run it, just driving away and just seeing it all burn. So it didn't give us necessarily that, but they all survived. They all beat their demons. And then we just don't know how the ending's going to be, but that fire around them, does protect them, because when the mother went into that house, that fire raised up. So it's not like the police or the white people can get to them, and they stand there strong on their porch as a family. As a unit. So it is a very strong, lasting image. But just like in Queen of Slim, they should have just got away. They should have just got away.
That's what I wanted. I think that would have been it. Like I said, that whole community, since they were protecting it with, their whole lives, the white people. I just wish that whole thing would have just went up in flames. The whole community.
I know, right? Yeah, guys. Well, again, thank you guys for sticking with us as you always do. Thank you for dropping some gems in the chat, letting us know about some family stuff that we too old to be hearing about now. We should have heard about when we was 15. Nah, I'm just playing with y'all family now. But we love y'all. No, of course, please give us the thumbs up. Hit subscribe. Please share this with other people that you think would be interested in watching the show, and
hit the notification bell too.
Notification bell, so when we're coming up. Also, we are on Twitch and we are on Facebook right now. Actually, I did see 5 people up there. Actually, my little switchboard tells me, we have one person in there right now. I don't know if you in Facebook or on Twitch, but what's going on to you, folks?
I don't even know how to get. See, I'm technically not. I don't even know how to get to the Facebook viewing of this. I don't even know where it's at. I'm like, okay, we're gonna figure that out.
We're gonna figure that out. But thank you, whoever's on the Twitch or the Facebook, and whoever dropped in. But please, absolutely, we always appreciate you guys. We love the conversation that you guys have. And I see Tristan said great show, so maybe Tristan, he might watch it.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, but
right. Tristan, just watch it.
Yeah. But next week we're gonna be talking about cancel culture. Now, of course, this right here is a very loaded one, so this may be something we may have to break into pieces. We're still sort of, I guess working through the kinks of this, but it's definitely something that me and Amber feel very strongly about, because as we like to talk about things that we feel very strongly about. Anything you
just my last statements are going to be: we are not against white people. What we are against is white supremacy, not individual, and just what that creates in people. It's like, it's a disease. I just wish people would see that. And this show kind of highlights it's a disease. It's not even. It ruined that the white community's lives. I mean, to be focused on a Black family as hard as they were, their lives could not have been that interesting or that great. It ruins lives. So that's all I have to say about that.
I mean, we're all of the human race. When you really break it down, there's no race gene out there. But unfortunately, because of what we go through, the white supremacy is that adversary. It is that spook by the door. And so this show said that, and we're going to keep on talking about the truth until, some change comes about. So this is our effort of trying to inform you guys and get some media literacy out there to let you guys know that some of these people who are saying they don't like this show don't know what they're talking about. Straight up.
Yeah.
And they can come on the show if they want to, and we can talk it out if they feel.
That's right. And watch it. If you're not a horror person, watch it during the day. That's all you got to do. Just watch it during the day.
Exactly. So is there anything else you want to
say? Happy to see everybody in the chat. Happy to see you guys all here. Like we keep saying, we're trying to get the show numbers up. So please just share. Share with your friends. Email links to your friends and that sort of thing. Yeah. We're always happy to see you all. The third host.
Always love seeing y'all family. So thank you guys again. We love you, and love, peace, and power.
Here, Grease.